The voice as an intruder is endowed with a spectral nature, with something both intimate and external. And Lacan invented an excellent word for this, which is the extant. Let me give 2 examples. In 2001, The Space Odyssey, the mythical film by Stanley Kubrick, we have this computer HAL 2000, which is running the spaceship, and at a certain point this computer causes problems, runs amok, and has to be disconnected. Well, you know the movie, I hope. So the hero disconnects the brain cells of this computer, slowly, one by one. Computers were these huge sizes in those days. While we hear the computer speaking with his completely mechanical voice, pleading for his life, pleading for mercy, regressing to his supposed childhood, singing a children's song. And so the computer dies the most human death, is as it were tragically human, just by its mechanical voice. It's humanity appearing precisely in its opposite, in this contrived voice, in this artificial extension, in this discrepancy. And the counter-example would be this contemporary real-life computer, supercomputer, the voice of Stephen Hawking. So we have this mastermind, this scientific icon of our times, the most astute mind there is in modern science, but reduced to the bare minimum of the body, the completely disabled body, the body shrunk to the utmost. His humanity is epitomized by the completely mechanical voice, the most gripping and at the same time the most uncanny voice, sort of extracorporeal voice, like the voice of the mind, gripping precisely in this impersonality. Now I'd like to make another general point before moving on, which is I've used in my book at various points this scheme of intersection of 2 circles, which sort of didactic scheme that Lacan uses at some point. And this scheme can serve various purposes. And the point is always that we have 2 areas which are linked by something that doesn't simply belong to them, although it's something they have in common, and presents a sort of area of their overlapping. And the 2 areas concerned can be language and body, which are connected by the voice, or more generally, nature and culture, biology and the symbolic, phone and logos, the subject and the other, interiority and exteriority. And the voice is always placed at the intersection. But this way of putting this is kind of misleading. Misleading insofar as it presupposes that we have 2 areas which are already constituted and stand opposed to each other, facing each other. And we are looking for the link, a link that would bridge their incommensurability, their utter divergence. But here lies the major paradox, I think, of psychoanalysis, the major difficulty of understanding its object. The voice is precisely the operator of the split. It inhabits the split, and by its operation actually produces the two areas which it is supposed to bring together in the overlapping. So, I don't know how to express simply this paradox. The overlapping produces the areas which overlap. So there is no simple interiority and exteriority, no symbolic or biology, no nature or culture, which would simply pre-exist this intersection. They don't exist as independent areas. At the same time, what they have in common is not some positive element which would simply belong to either of them. So this is where Lacan insists on this object A, which can be embodied by various things, but we're looking at this particularly compelling object, which is the voice. So this voice is like, this object is like a quirk, it's like an addition, it's like an intrusion. It presents a dimension which is neither interior nor exterior, neither nature nor culture, neither somatic nor symbolic, but where the one intrudes upon the other. It emerges at their interface. Beckett says, I have two surfaces but no thickness. There is no ontological thickness or substance to this interface. It embodies the borderline, but a borderline which is constantly renegotiated and doesn't exist as a clear line of demarcation. So in the voice, the language infringes upon the body, and the body infringes upon language. And more generally, the psychoanalytic concept of the drive, the tree, circumscribes a paradoxical locus, and nature infringes upon culture, and culture infringes upon nature. It points to some nature which is not merely nature, a denatured nature, and it points to the spots in culture, but is not mere culture, but relies on its other. It intersects with the denatured body. So the area of overlapping is the area of production of pure divergence. It produces the two sides, which don't have a common measure, which are irreducible to each other. An intersection is the very relationship of their non-relation, something that articulates them and binds them together while they remain absolutely heterogeneous. It connects and disconnects at the same time. So, I'm coming to a further point. The spectral autonomy of the voice, the zone of indeterminacy, can perhaps best be felt with what has become known as the acousmatic voice. It's a term which was introduced by the French composer Pierre Schaeffer and by Michel Chillon, and it means simply the voice whose origin one cannot see or locate. We don't know where it's coming from, and to what body it will be assigned. This voice can produce rather uncanny effects. The impossibility to locate it endows it with a special force, a sort of omnipotence and omnipresence. But the most striking example is Hitchcock's Psycho, which entirely revolves around the simple question of where does the mother's voice come from which body it emanates. So we have the voice, but we don't see the body producing it, not until the very end. And the mother's voice, one can add, is not just any voice. It is the beginning of any vocal experience. The first voice one hears, in the case is paradigmatic. It's the mother of all voices. It determines so much of infant's fate in the first indecisive stages. And this voice is precisely an acousmatic voice, whose origin the baby initially and structurally cannot locate. So the acousmatic voice is actually the originary experience of the voice, as the voice of the other. And this is where Psycho, this is, I suppose, part of the power of this movie, acquires the force of a parent. And, well, I will briefly tell the story. There is the inherent link between the acousmatic voice and philosophy. For the word acousmatic comes from Pythagoras' pupils, and Pythagoras was the first person to call himself a philosopher and to found the first philosophical school. So the acousmatics were his followers who had to listen to their teacher, to their master, to his lectures, in such a way that the teacher was hidden behind a screen. And they had to listen to this teacher behind the screen for 5 years. So if anybody wanted to be Pythagoras' disciple, he had to undergo a period of apprenticeship when, for 5 years, he was merely listening to the master's teaching proffered behind the curtain, not being able to see the master. So this is the acousmatic dispositive which stands at the very origin of philosophy. The teacher behind the screen, lecturing, an invisible creature of the voice. This is a stroke of genius, which maybe inaugurates philosophy as such. This is a philosophical theatre, with the curtain low, but a curtain which is not raised for 5 years. So that initially, philosophy appears as an art of an actor behind the screen. And the aim of this mechanism was to separate the teaching, entrusted to mere voice, from any visual distraction, from all the imaginary, from any image and appearance, from the behavior and the body of the teacher, from everything that would divert from the ideas which are preferred. So the teaching, the ideas, the doctrine, order was assigned only to his master's voice, as the proper medium, the medium of the spirit, And the aim of this was precisely to separate the spirit from the body. But it's not only that the disciples would concentrate better on the ideas in this way. It is also that the teaching acquired